It's crazy. I never had an imaginary friend. Wait, does that make me the imaginary friend? Can you all see me right now? Oh, wow, I'm having a bit of an existential crisis. Well, before I disappear like Marty McFly at a Metallica concert, here are my immediate thoughts on If. If is the latest coming-of-age fantasy directed by John Krasinski, but this is a story that he and co-star Ryan Reynolds have actually been working on for a while, and they co-wrote the script together with a couple other writers. After discovering she can see everyone's imaginary friends, a girl played by Cailey Fleming embarks on a magical adventure with Ryan Reynolds to reconnect forgotten If's imaginary friends with their kids. So after John Krasinski as a director has proven himself as a box office draw with the success of the Quiet Place movies, he's now in the situation where he's making a more personal movie. And this sort of reminds me of Francis Ford Coppola in the 70s. After he made Godfather 1 and 2 and the wild success of those, he decided to make something a little bit more personal with the conversation, which he made right before he dove in, making Apocalypse Now. And I believe Krasinski and the film, for the most part, is able to pull it off. For the most part. Let's start with the performances, and the real revelation in this movie is Cailey Fleming as Bee, the young girl who is tasked with finding these imaginary friends with new kids and matching them all together, and she is excellent. Bee is someone who lost her mother to cancer, so she is grief-stricken. She also has a lot of fear because her father, played by John Krasinski, is undergoing heart surgery, which has a lot of dangerous risks involved. So Bee is someone who has a lot of fear and a lot of grief, and she has to play all of that up as a 12-year-old girl. We get to see all of the emotions through her: fear, joy, determination, wonder. If Bee was boring or an unlikable protagonist, this entire movie would fall apart. But thankfully, Cailey Fleming is up to the task, and my God, is 2024 a great year for child actors or what? Seriously though, Cailey Fleming was great in this movie. Everyone else, for the most part, are serviceable. Ryan Reynolds plays the mysterious man who lives upstairs from Bee's grandmother in New York, where she's staying as she waits for her father's surgery. And Ryan Reynolds is playing a different role here. This is an anti-Deadpool performance. He's a lot more subdued. There are little moments of comedy. There's a running gag with an imaginary If that we see in the trailer, but Ryan Reynolds is playing the straight man to Bee and all the imaginary friends that surround him. But yeah, it's a good performance, but it is a little subdued and not expected from Ryan Reynolds. John Krasinski is good as Bee's father. He's pretty much a practical joker, and he pretty much exists to always remind Bee that there's always going to be an inner child in all of us. And I really did like the dynamic between the two of them. You really get a sense as father and daughter that they really do love each other. And it does help too when there are little moments that are a little bit more serious. But yeah, again, Krasinski for the most part was serviceable. Who I really liked in this was Fiona Shaw as Bee's grandmother. She has a little subplot where she talks about in her past she used to be a dancer, and one of the more heartwarming moments in this entire movie has to do with their character. It is a great little moment and also displays one of the minor flaws that I have with this movie, because I wish there were more moments like that in this film. Now, the voice cast in this movie is insane, but let's talk about the main two. Steve Carell as Blue and Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Blossom, and they're both really good. Blue is just this infectious ball of energy, and Blossom is a little bit more on the sophisticated style. But what I really liked is that the animators did such a really good job of creating these characters that really match the tone of these voices. Just a really good job all around. I don't think I can name everyone that's in this movie, but I certainly will try. I do know for sure Gossett Jr. has his last role in this movie playing a wise old teddy bear. Fuck it, I'm just gonna read the rest of the cast. Awkwafina, Emily Blunt, George Clooney, Bradley Cooper, Matt Damon, Bill Hader, Richard Jenkins, Keegan-Michael Key, Blake Lively, Sam Rockwell, Maya Rudolph, Amy Schumer, Jon Stewart, and Brad Pitt as an invisible If. And if Hollywood decides to go with a running gag of any invisible character being played and cast by Brad Pitt, I am all for that. But seriously, the voice acting across the board in this movie is excellent. It is very obvious that John Krasinski has a lot of confidence and skill as a filmmaker. He is able to create this great little world of imaginary friends that reside in this sort of semi-retirement home in an abandoned amusement park, of course. And he works with a lot of different animation styles. For example, Blue looks like something straight out of Monsters, Inc., while Blossom looks like a 3D rendering of a cartoon character straight out of Betty Boop. There is one character that's basically an impressionist painting. And I do like how this movie incorporates some of its own internal rules and logic. There's actually one scene that is basically Inception for kids, where B basically is able to change and alter the interior of where all of these ifs reside just by using her imagination and seeing the ceilings rise and the floors change and the walls change and chocolate cakes just appear out of nowhere and Ryan Reynolds having to fly out and swim out of a painting that looks like something straight out of Monet. It's just a lot of really cool stuff thrown into this movie. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this movie, and that's sort of the catch-22 sort of flaw with this movie. There's 3 or 4 main things going on, and because there isn't enough focus or attention on any of them, it just feels like when there are moments that there's supposed to be some emotional payoff, it just doesn't feel totally earned. It's almost like that there are 2 or 3 scenes missing that would lead up to that emotional payoff that we as the audience need and we're missing. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of working parts and different plots going on. There's the whole matchmaker plot with B and the imaginary ifs, the imaginary friends. There's the heart surgery plot with John Krasinski. There's a little subplot with B's grandmother and her dancing past. So yeah, there's just a lot going on, and I just wish that maybe John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds and that whole creative team maybe just took a look at that script one more time and just decided to streamline it a little bit more and focus it and decide to, make this story all about, the whole thing with B and doing the matchmaking with the imaginary friends. I feel if there was a lot more focus on that and we got away from the stuff with the heart surgery, I'm not even sure we really needed all of that because it just felt like an emotional, melodramatic add-on. It feels like that B could have had something else tethered to her in terms of her own internal fears or her grief that she would need, to use the imaginary friends as sort of a conduit to get over that. I'm not sure if we needed the whole father subplot with the heart surgery. Also, there's just some moments of tonal inconsistency, I think. It feels like there are times if it wants to be like a kid's movie, or if it wants to be something a little bit more mature for preteens or teenagers. And also, the movie takes a detour that I didn't expect. It kind of reminded me of The Sixth Sense with Cole when things start out with him and the ghosts. We think that the movie is really about Cole having to get away from these ghosts, but the movie takes a pivot and it's really more about Cole accepting his gifts and, getting these ghosts and spirits to move on. And it kind of takes not a similar detour, but it takes a detour that I didn't expect, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised by it. There is one scene with Bobby Moynihan that, man, if there was a greater buildup, if the film was more streamlined, focusing on the ifs, and that was really the main crux of the plot, that moment would have really paid off. It was still really powerful, but that moment would have paid off so much more, would have had a lot more emotional weight to it if this movie, like I said, was just a little bit more streamlined. And there is a twist in this movie, and honestly, most people will figure it out within 20 minutes of this movie. Overall, If is a pretty good movie. Cailey Fleming carries this movie on her 12-year-old shoulders and carries most of the emotional weight of the film. The world building, animation, special effects, and Michael Giaccone's score, like always, slaps. The live action is decent, but the voice acting itself was hella fun, and I loved seeing the world of these ifs and how they interact with each other. I wish I got more into that world and less of the melodramatic heart surgery stuff. And that, like I said, could have been just exercised from the movie, and there could have been other fears or anxieties B could have thematically had to tackle that would have brought her to the same place. If there was just a little more focus, this could have been another home run for Krasinski, but a double isn't bad either. If is a good old-fashioned hit. I did enjoy this film, but I would be lying if I said that I wasn't even a little disappointed with this, but I still like Krasinski. I wouldn't even call this a fumble or a misstep. Not everyone has a perfect filmography, but bring on A Quiet Place Day 1 and Deadpool and Wolverine. What did you think of If? Share your thoughts, leave your comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can get notifications as well. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.